Have you ever noticed that sometimes the truth is right in front of you, but you simply cannot see it? It's not a lack of intelligence, nor a lack of experience. It's something more subtle, that internal mechanism that distorts the obvious, that creates silent narratives and convinces you that everything is fine. Today, we're going to explore how the human mind sabotages us without our noticing, and how Hawkins describes this phenomenon with an almost uncomfortable precision. And perhaps, as you listen, a few inner pieces will finally fall into place. There is a quiet moment in adult life when a person realizes that it's not the lack of information that keeps them from moving forward. It's the way they interpret what they already know. And this point, discreet, almost invisible, is where Hawkins puts his finger. The mind doesn't just think, it distorts. Think of simple situations. You feel that something is wrong in a relationship, but insist that it's just a phase. You notice that your energy is always low, but convince yourself that it's just accumulated fatigue. You observe the repetition of the same emotional pattern over decades, but attribute it to chance, to fate, to personality, to anything except the automatic mechanism operating inside you. It's as if the obvious were always there, knocking at the door, but you learned not to listen, not out of fault, but out of habit, out of emotional survival. Hawkins explains this phenomenon as a structural self-deception, almost like a dirty lens you forgot you're wearing. Over time, that lens defines what you call my life. And when you live years, sometimes decades, inside that lens, you begin to think it's normal. Normal to ignore discomfort, normal to distract yourself from yourself, normal to survive instead of live. And maybe the problem isn't the lack of answers. Maybe the problem is the difficulty in seeing the right questions. What we're going to explore today is precisely this: why your mind hides the obvious, how to identify these blind spots, and how to begin recovering that clean, lucid, mature perception that you may not have experienced in a long time. Welcome to an intimate territory, sometimes uncomfortable, but always liberating. There is a silent promise behind this theme. When you begin to perceive self-deception, it's not the pain that increases, it's the freedom. Because seeing the obvious is not about confronting life, it's about finally stopping running from it. Hawkins states that the greatest prison is not emotional, social, or spiritual. It is perceptual. It is living inside an interpretation you never consciously chose. It is believing that things are this way, when in truth they only seem this way because your mind trained you to see them like that. And here begins the practical content. Imagine that your mind functions like an internal narrator that tries to protect you all the time. The intention is good, but the method is disastrous. To avoid discomfort, it creates micro-justifications that make everything more palatable. And the more you repeat these justifications, the more they become emotional truths. This is how self-deception is born. Everyday examples Hawkins would love to use. You say you don't have time to take care of yourself, but spend hours in unproductive worries. You claim you don't want conflict, but avoid conversations that would resolve months-old problems. You believe it's not that serious when you felt drained for years. These are small deviations from your inner reality, nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, but enough to, over the years, create an enormous distance between who you are and who you think you are. The promise of this video is clear. We're going to clean that lens. We're going to reveal the mechanism. And we're going to do it with calm, maturity, and depth, the way someone with a lifetime of experiences deserves to hear. When we talk about self-deception, many people imagine something dramatic, like major internal lies or radical decisions. But in Hawkins' view, self-deception is more like a soft fog that settles gradually, so slowly that you only notice it when you try to look far, and everything seems a bit opaque. Let's go deeper into that fog. The mind tries all the time to reduce the emotional impact of experiences. It edits, softens, reinterprets. For example, you feel a sense of abandonment from someone important. But instead of acknowledging the discomfort, your mind says, "I'm independent. I don't need anyone. So dear, this is silly. This shouldn't affect me." This kind of statement isn't rationality. It's protection, a protection that infantilizes your relationship with the truth. The mind does this because it believes that if you acknowledge what you truly feel, you won't be able to handle it. But the truth is exactly the opposite. What exhausts you is not feeling. It's running away from the feeling over and over again. Hawkins emphasizes that the mind has an impressive ability to hide from you everything that threatens your self-image. It prefers to maintain a sense of identity, even a limited one, than to allow profound changes. Classic examples: "I'm just like this. I've always been this way. There's no point trying, nothing changes." These statements are not facts. They are old emotional programs, running silently like outdated software no one ever turned off. And the more emotional age you accumulate inside this program, the more it becomes personality, temperament, lifestyle. But deep down, it's just conditioning. What is the obvious in adult life? You are more tired than normal. The same emotional pattern has repeated for years. A quiet dissatisfaction accompanies your decisions. You feel like you live in automatic mode. But for some reason, you can't name it. You can't look at it directly. There is always a sense of almost, of I don't know, of I'll deal with it later. And Hawkins gives a simple name to this phenomenon: energetic resistance. It's as if you had an internal radar ready to show you the truth. But a part of you holds that radar with both hands, keeping it from turning in the right direction. Clarity doesn't begin with an answer. It begins with the courage to ask more adult, more sincere, more direct questions. Questions like, what am I avoiding feeling? Why does this situation repeat? At what point do I accept emotional scraps as if they were enough? What is the story I tell about myself to keep things comfortable? These questions create space for something crucial: inner honesty, which is the natural antidote to self-deception. And here is the most beautiful irony in Hawkins' view. When you stop trying to control your perception, it finally organizes itself. If there is one central point in everything we've seen so far, it is this: self-deception is not a flaw. It's a survival mechanism. It was born when you didn't yet have the emotional maturity to handle certain truths and therefore had to create stories that protected you. But now, as an adult, aware, wiser, you can look at these stories from a different perspective. Hawkins said that the evolution of consciousness happens when we stop confusing protection with truth. Protection tries to keep you small. Truth tries to set you free. And there is something powerful in that. The more you recognize your blind spots, the less your life feels like an emotional maze, and the more it becomes a clear, direct, profound path. Not because everything becomes easy, but because everything finally makes sense. Little by little, you begin to notice that the invisible obvious was always there, in the emotions you pushed to tomorrow, in the discomforts you treated as small, in the decisions you postponed for years, in the cycles that continued because no one ever questioned them. And when you finally see them, maybe for the first time in decades, it won't be frightening. It will be freeing. It will sound like, so that was it, just that. Now I can move forward. Oh, this is the kind of clarity that reorganizes life. If you recognized yourself at any point in this video, don't feel weak. Feel awake. Seeing self-deception is the first step toward an emotional autonomy that many people search for their entire lives and never find. And this doesn't require perfection. It only requires presence. If this content brought you clarity, deepen this journey. Share the video with someone who also deserves to see the hidden obvious, and continue exploring consciousness with me in the next episodes. You are not alone in this path, and with each truth recognized, life becomes less heavy.